What's up, guys? Justin Morgan here, Carved Up Vegan Muscle, and yes, I did 2 videos in a row, day after day, and can't promise that I'll keep up that kind of upload frequency, because it would be pretty unrealistic for me to do that. But I got a question in on the video from yesterday asking about shoulder health and what I do to promote both flexibility and general strengthening to maintain good shoulder health while lifting. So, I really don't do a whole lot as far as like flexibility and that kind of thing. Usually most of the things I do require some flexibility in the movement. But then, like when I go to do a lot of bench pressing, it can kind of affect my ability to get into good positions for overhead pressing, particularly in the log clean and press, where things kind of need to be locked out in a, well, they don't need to be, but it helps if you can get into a good position. That will help your general ability. So as far as flexibility goes, when I'm doing a lot of bench pressing, I will actually do shoulder dislocations. I just have a band, a black band. I don't know what the how much tension they are. I know they're color coordinated, so they paint them different colors based on how how much, what the size, width of the band is, because it'll provide more or less tension. But I just have one of these black bands. And I will, a shoulder dislocation, I use the band because it allows me to, not have great flexibility where it's, it stretches out as I get into parts where it's hard and I'm less mobile in. But this kind of helps keep my chest opened up and my shoulders in a good position. So in preparing for powerlifting, I do this a little more often, whereas when I'm working on log pressing or overhead pressing and doing a lot of clean and jerk movements where I'm kind of getting into that position, it's not really quite so important that I do that because I don't get as tight during those times. That's not to say that I don't do it, it's just that it doesn't require quite as much during those times. And then the other thing that I do that I think helps out general shoulder health, I've had pretty good success with not getting injured in any way, in doing all of the crazy strongman and powerlifting stuff, is that I try to do some pulling exercises for all of the pressing that I do. So if I'm doing a lot of horizontal pressing, or bench pressing would be the only movement that I do in where my body's in a horizontal plane, then I generally try to do some form of horizontal pulling. So it would be like a barbell row or something like that. And then usually I do more like pull-ups and that kind of thing, pull-ups, chin-ups, and you can use the bands actually for that too. A lot of people recommend, because you're already doing deadlifting to prepare for these, and you don't really need to do a whole lot of lat type pulling movements for powerlifting. That's not to say that you shouldn't do them. I do a lot of pull-ups and those kind of things because I want to have a huge back. I want to look a certain way. So I train for that appearance. I like that, general kind of big, bulky appearance is kind of what I'm personally going for. But as far as powerlifting goes, you really don't necessarily need to do a ton of direct lat work like rows and pull-ups to excel and be good in the sport. That's not to say you shouldn't do any of that, but doing a whole bunch of it's really not going to contribute to your total as much as doing a lot of deadlifting will. So now for strongman, it does have a lot more carryover there because you're doing a lot of pulling events where you're doing upper body pulling. It carries over into stone loading where you're having to brace your upper back and use a lot of bicep tension to hold the stone, so that will have a lot of carryover. But other aspects of direct shoulder exercises that you should do, or that can, if you're not doing some of those other exercises, will be necessary, would be anything that kind of targets the rear delts, because you're kind of using these anterior delts a lot for bench pressing and more so for like push presses and things like that if you're doing primarily overhead pressing. So doing something that kind of evens out the shoulder, so you're working, it's what's called agonist and antagonist. So if you're pressing, you're working these anterior deltoids, so those are going to be the agonist. So the antagonist muscles that are contrary to those would be the rear delts. So you can do a band pull aparts. So if you're just holding a band like this, you pull it apart and it kind of hits some of those rear delts a little bit. Another option that you could do would be to put one of these bands around a bar, and then you could pull it towards your face like this, and those are called face pulls. That's a great exercise too, to kind of hit some of those rear delts. So those would be general shoulder direct type things that I do. Occasionally it depends on what part of the training cycle. I don't really go crazy on any of that stuff. It's just kind of in there more for just some like general kind of thing. Obviously, if you're having pain in that area and you think that it might be as a result of that, you might kind of prioritize it a little more than I do. But I really don't have any shoulder pains or any problems with that, so at least for right now, it's not a huge deal to me. I try to throw it in just for general maintenance and to keep up, and hopefully that carries me through and I never ever have any problems with my shoulder. But if I do, then I'll probably have to, that would probably be the first place I would start doing, is working on considering maybe I have some imbalances or something. Unless I had some kind of direct injury, obviously then it would explain that. But hopefully, if you've had problems with your shoulders or you're looking for things to do to help out your shoulders, those would kind of give you at least a good starting point, or some general things that you can do to help prevent shoulder injury, which would be ideal. So you guys take it easy, and I'll talk to you in the next video.